My name is Diana Frost. I'm 32 years old, and the moment everything changed didn't feel loud. It felt quiet. So quiet that if you weren't paying attention, you might have missed it completely. My boyfriend once stood in our kitchen, leaning against the counter like he was rehearsing something, and said, "Maybe you need to step back for a while. Think about what you're risking." And I remember something inside me didn't shatter. It stilled. Not anger, not panic, just clarity. At the time, I don't think Ethan Caldwell understood what that silence meant, but I did. Before I met Ethan, my life was simple in a way that felt intentional. I worked as a logistics coordinator for a regional medical distributor. My days were structured: routes, deliveries, timing, systems that only worked if everything stayed consistent. I liked that. I depended on that. Ethan didn't. He was 29, worked in social media for a boutique fitness brand. His life wasn't built on structure, it was built on impressions. Fast responses, curated moments, emotional reactions that played well in public and lingered in private. At the beginning, I thought that difference made us stronger. Balance, we called it. We had been together for just over 2 years. He had been living in my condo for 10 months. Everything was in my name: the mortgage, the parking access, the utilities. Ethan handled his own expenses, but the space we lived in was mine. And slowly, without me realizing it at first, so was the emotional weight. Ethan didn't do normal relationship things. He didn't ask, "Can you pick me up?" or "Do you miss me?" He tested. If I didn't text back fast enough, he'd go quiet for hours, waiting to see if I'd double message. If I stayed calm during an argument, he'd escalate, just enough to provoke something. If I didn't react the way he expected, he'd say I was emotionally distant. At first, I thought it was insecurity. Then I thought it was immaturity. By the end, I realized it was manipulation with better lighting. His favorite line was always some version of, "If you cared, you'd prove it." And I did. For a long time, I proved it. I stayed patient when conversations twisted into traps. I explained myself when silence would have been healthier. I tried to meet him halfway, even when I couldn't tell where halfway was anymore. But there's a kind of exhaustion that doesn't show up all at once. It builds quietly. The kind that sits behind your ribs and makes even simple conversations feel expensive. The night it ended, we were at a birthday dinner for his friend Ashley. Rooftop restaurant, loud music, patio heaters, too many people dressed like they were performing for a camera that wasn't there. Ethan had been glued to his friends most of the night, doing that thing where he checked on me just enough to make sure I hadn't disappeared, but not enough to actually be present. I went inside to grab water. That's when I heard him. He was standing maybe 15 feet away with Ashley and another friend, Morgan. Morgan said something about how Ethan and I always looked intense, even when nothing was wrong. Ethan laughed. Not nervously, not defensively, just casually. "Half the time," he said, "I start stuff just to see whether Diana still knows how to fight for me." Ashley frowned. "Ethan, that sounds manipulative." He shrugged, taking a sip of his drink. "If I don't push her a little, she gets comfortable. People always get lazy when they think they have you." Morgan tilted her head. "Like the silent treatment thing?" Ethan smiled. "Or picking a fight right before plans, or acting like I'm done. Whatever works. If she cares, she proves it." That was the moment everything went clear. Not loud, not dramatic, clear. Every argument, every confusing reaction, every time I sat there wondering how I became the problem for reacting like a normal person. It all aligned in about 5 seconds. I waited. Ashley stepped away. Morgan drifted toward the bar. Then I walked over. "Ethan," I said, "can you come with me for a second?" He rolled his eyes before I even finished the sentence. We stepped toward the stairwell. I repeated exactly what I'd heard, word for word. He didn't deny it. Didn't even try. Instead, he crossed his arms and gave me that practiced smile, the one he used when he wanted to make me feel small without raising his voice. "Diana," he said, "I only push you to see if you'll fight for me." I just looked at him. He kept going. "Because you shut down. Because you get too calm. If I don't get a reaction out of you, I don't know what you feel." And that's when I said it. "Fight for yourself." He blinked. Once. Hard. Like I had skipped several pages in a script he thought I was still following. What? "We're done." Silence. Then his face shifted. Disbelief, then offense, then something sharper. "Ed, don't do this here." "You already did it here." I didn't wait for a response. I walked away. By the time I reached the elevator, my phone buzzed 4 times. "Are you serious? Stop being dramatic. You're twisting this. Pick up the phone." I didn't answer. I paid for parking, drove home, and started packing. Not angry packing. Not chaotic. methodical. His clothes folded into storage bins, shoes lined into suitcases, toiletries zipped into bags. Even the small things, chargers, books, that ridiculous ceramic vase he insisted made the place look warmer, wrapped and labeled. At 10:52 p.m., I booked a locksmith. At 11:06, I emailed the condo office to revoke his access. At 11:18, I texted my neighbor Nate to be present during pickup. Ethan called 11 times between 11:30 and 1 o'clock. Left 2 voicemails. The first was angry. The second was softer. "Diana, stop. You know how I am. I just wanted to feel wanted." I listened to it once, then set my phone down. Because that exact line, was always the excuse. And for the first time, I wasn't interested in understanding it anymore. I didn't sleep much that night. Not because I was upset, because I was focused. There's a difference. One keeps you spinning, the other keeps you moving. By the time the sun came up, most of Ethan's life inside my condo had been reduced to labeled containers. Not erased, just separated, categorized, made clear in a way it never had been while we were together. At 9:20 a.m., the locksmith finished. New locks, new keys, clean break. I stood in the doorway after he left, holding the spare set in my hand, and for a second, I just listened. Silence, not the heavy kind. The kind that feels like space. At 10:07, I got the confirmation email from the condo office. His garage access had been revoked. Guest permissions removed. No digital traces left tied to him. It was efficient. Final. By noon, I was sealing the last box. Kitchen items he had claimed as his, even though most of them had appeared gradually over time, like everything else he'd brought into my life. I separated everything anyway. No room for debate later. At 12:07, I texted him. "Your things are packed. Pickup windows are 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. or 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. Nate will be present. Choose one." The reply came almost immediately. "You changed the locks?" "Yes. You can't kick me out because you got your feelings hurt." I stared at the message for a moment, then typed, "Oh, this is not a negotiation. Pick a time." There was a pause. Then, 7 o'clock. That was it. No apology. No reflection. Just positioning. I set my phone down and went back to work. Because there was still something left to do. Not physically, but mentally. I had to hold the line. That was the part people don't talk about. Ending something isn't the hard part. Not going back is. By 6:45, everything was outside. Stacked neatly near the curb. Storage bins labeled. 2 rolling suitcases. 1 garment bag. Even the smaller boxes arranged in a way that made the whole situation look intentional. Because it was. Nate stood nearby, hands in his pockets, calm in that quiet, observant way he always had. Former Marine, mid-40s. The kind of person who didn't say much, but didn't miss anything either. "Looks like a moving company came through," he said. "Just me," I replied. He nodded once. "Cleaner this way." At 7:14, a silver SUV pulled up. Ethan stepped out from the passenger side. Ashley was driving. He was wearing oversized sunglasses, even though the sun had already dropped behind the buildings. For a second, he just stood there, looking at the boxes, not speaking, just staring. Then he pulled the glasses off slowly. "So this is what you're doing?" "Yes." Over one conversation, I met his gaze. No, over what that conversation confirmed. Ashley shifted slightly, like she was about to step in, to soften things, to translate, to smooth the edges the way people always try to when they don't understand what they're interrupting. But Nate moved first. "Let's keep it moving," he said, voice even. "No need to turn this into something else." That stopped her. Third-party presence does that. It removes the performance layer. Ethan walked forwards and picked up the first box. Then another. Slowly. Deliberately. But his eyes kept coming back to me. Waiting. Watching. Looking for something. A crack. A hesitation. A sign that this wasn't finished. It didn't come. "Diana," he said after a minute, setting a box into the trunk. "You're being cold." I didn't respond. "You don't just throw away 2 years like this." "I'm not throwing it away," I said calmly. "I'm ending it." "That's the same thing." "No," I said, "it's not." He exhaled sharply, running a hand through his hair. "This is exactly what I was talking about," he said. "You shut down. You don't fight for anything." I almost smiled. Not because it was funny, because it was predictable. "You already explained your version of fighting," I said. "I'm not participating in that anymore." Ashley finally spoke. "Maybe we're all just emotional right now," she said carefully. "Maybe this doesn't have to be permanent." That word again. Permanent. Like I was supposed to reassure them. Like I was still responsible for managing how this felt for everyone else. "It is," I said. Simple. Direct. No room to reinterpret. Ethan's expression shifted again, less controlled now. "You're going to regret this," he said. "You always do this. You go too far, then you come back." I held his gaze. "I'm not coming back." Silence stretched between us. Not dramatic. Just final. He loaded the last suitcase, closed the trunk, then turned back to me, something sharper behind his eyes now. "You're acting like I did something unforgivable." I didn't raise my voice, didn't step closer. I just said, "You told your friends you create problems to make me prove my feelings." He opened his mouth, closed it, then tried again. That's not—" "It is," I said. "You said it. I heard it." Ashley looked between us, her expression tightening slightly, like something was starting to shift in her understanding. Ethan noticed, and that's when his tone changed. Subtler, softer, more careful. "Diana," he said, quieter now. "You know that's not what I meant." I didn't answer, because I did know what he meant, and that was the problem. He took a step closer. "You're going to regret acting this cold when you calm down." I tilted my head slightly. "Drive safe." That was it. No anger, no escalation, nothing for him to push against. He stood there for a second longer, like he was waiting for the real ending, the emotional one, the one where I broke and gave him something to work with. It didn't come. So he turned, got into the SUV, and slammed the door hard enough that Nate glanced over. The engine started. The car pulled away. And just like that, he was gone. Nate looked at me. "You good?" I nodded. "Yeah." He studied me for a second longer, then gave a small shrug. "All right, if anything changes, you know where I am." "Thanks, Nate." He headed back inside. I stood there alone for a moment. The curb empty now. The space where his things had been. Clear. I turned, walked back into my condo, closed the door, locked it. And for the first time in a long time, it actually felt like mine again. That should have been the end. It wasn't. 3 days later, I got a text from an unknown number. "She knows she pushed too far. Can you at least tell her this isn't permanent? Ashley." Different number. Same angle. I stared at the message, something in me tightening. Not emotionally, but structurally. Like a pattern reappearing exactly where I expected it. Not apology, not accountability. Reassurance, as if I still worked there. I typed one line. "It is permanent. Please stop contacting me." Then I blocked the number. The next day, his cousin called. Logan. Different voice. Same script. "Ethan spirals when he feels abandoned," he said. "A stronger woman would have understood he just needed reassurance." I leaned back in my chair, phone pressed lightly to my ear. "No," I said calmly. He didn't need reassurance." Pause. "He created fear so I'd perform for him. That's not the same thing." Silence. Then, "He really loves you." I let that sit for a second. "Maybe," I said, "but he loves control more." And I hung up. Blocked him too. By Monday, Ethan had moved online. Black background, white text. "Emotionally unavailable people will punish you for expressing too much." A few hours later, a mirror selfie. Caption, "Choosing peace over people who can't handle intensity." I stared at the screen for a long second, then locked my phone. There it was. The rewrite. Same pattern, different stage. By noon, one of our mutual friends, Jenna, texted me screenshots. "Is this about you?" I didn't answer right away. Not because I didn't know what to say, because I knew exactly what to send. 3 things. The message where I gave him pickup windows, a photo of the labeled boxes at the curb, and the line he said at the rooftop. Half the time I start stuff just to see whether Diana still knows how to fight for me. Jenna replied with one word. Wow, that was the first crack. Not loud, but visible. The second came Tuesday morning. I was walking into the office garage at 7:40 when I saw him, leaning against my car, holding 2 coffees, wearing my old hoodie, the gray one he used to take whenever he wanted to look softer, harmless. I stopped about 15 feet away. "You can't be here," he smiled, like this was normal. "I just want 5 minutes. No. Diana, please, stop doing this cold robot thing. I'm trying to fix what I admitted." I didn't move closer. "You admitted to manipulating me," I said. "There's nothing to fix." His expression tightened for half a second. Then he pivoted. "I was being honest with you," he said. "Most people would appreciate that." It was so absurd I almost laughed. Instead, I reached into my bag and pulled out my phone. "Security's going to document that you're here," I said. That did it. The softness dropped instantly. "You always need an audience," he snapped. "You always need to make me look crazy." I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Because the moment he heard the word document, he lost control. That afternoon, HR called. A woman had phoned reception asking whether employees were allowed to emotionally discard partners after provoking them. I forwarded everything. The texts, the timeline, the incident in the garage. They flagged his name. Told front desk not to transfer any calls. Clean, professional, handled. But it didn't stop. That night, 11:38 p.m., my phone buzzed. Blocked number, voicemail. "I can see your living room light on," he said. "I know you're awake. Please stop acting like I'm dangerous just because I cared more than you did." I listened to it twice. Not because of the guilt, because of the detail. "I can see your living room light on," which meant he had been outside, or across the street, watching. The next morning, I filed a police information report. Not dramatic, not urgent, just documented. Because paper matters. And patterns matter more than explanations. At the same time, something unexpected happened. My life got easier, quieter. I slept through the night. Signed up for a certification I had been putting off for months because Ethan treated any consistent routine that didn't include him as a threat. First class was Wednesday. That's where I met Daniel. He was normal, friendly, a little sarcastic, easy to talk to in a way that didn't feel like a test. We stood in the parking lot after class for 10 minutes, just talking about how bad the fluorescent lighting was. And I remember thinking, I forgot what this feels like. No pressure, no performance, just simple. Thursday night, Ethan emailed me. Subject line, "You're still punishing me." The email was exactly what I expected. A few thin apologies buried under accusations. "I'm sorry if my words came out wrong. You're using my vulnerability against me. You're choosing ego over intimacy." I didn't respond. Friday morning, I found a handwritten note under my door. "You know this isn't really who you are." No name, no signature. But I recognized the handwriting. Same slant, same loops. I added it to the folder, because by then, that's what it had become. A folder. Screenshots, call logs, notes, dates. Not emotional evidence. Structural, clear. Then came the escalation I almost respected. Almost. Saturday afternoon, a woman named Madison called me. She said she worked with Ethan. Her voice was tight. Panicked. "He collapsed during a workout class," she said. "They're checking him at urgent care. He keeps asking for you. I think if you call..." I didn't interrupt. I just listened. Then I hung up and called the urgent care. No Ethan. Called another one nearby. Nothing. I texted Madison once. "There is no Ethan at either location. Do not contact me again." No response. 2 days later, flowers arrived at my office. White roses, eucalyptus, expensive arrangement. Reception brought them to my desk in front of 3 coworkers. The card said, "Stop letting pride win. Fight for us." I took a photo. Check the delivery slip. Fake name. Real callback number. His. Into the folder. Then he contacted my mother. That one almost impressed me. Not because it worked, because of the audacity. My mom called me that evening. "Why is this man telling me you abandoned him after he opened up to you?" I didn't explain. I forwarded everything. The rooftop conversation. The messages. The voicemail. The note. The flowers. All of it. She called me back 12 minutes later. "Did he really say he starts fights to make you prove yourself?" "Yes." Silence. Then, "Well, he can prove himself to someone else. He's not calling me again." Apparently, he tried crying, then explaining, then shifting it onto me. She shut it down. Clean. That night, I got another message. "Ashley, new number. Getting your family involved is low." I screenshotted it, added it to the folder, and forwarded everything to an attorney I had already spoken to. Consultation wasn't cheap, but clarity rarely is. He read through everything and said one sentence that stayed with me. Pattern matters more than excuses. So he sent a cease and desist. Certified mail. Email. Official. Ethan lasted 48 hours. Then Thursday night happened. After class, Daniel and I grabbed dinner. Nothing serious. Just tacos, conversation, easy silence. We walked out around 9:15. And there he was, leaning against Daniel's car, dressed like nothing had happened, like this was still his story to control. He looked at Daniel first, then at me. "So this is why you moved on so fast." Daniel didn't react, just said calmly, "You should leave." Ethan ignored him, focused on me. "This is what all of this was really about," he said. "You just needed a reason." "Ethan," I said, "leave." He laughed, then looked at Daniel again. "Be careful. She pretends she's above drama, but she keeps records on people like a lawyer." Daniel didn't respond, just took his phone out. And that's when Ethan snapped. He knocked it out of his hand, hard enough that it hit the pavement. Everything shifted. Restaurant staff came out. Someone called the police. Ethan's expression changed instantly. anger to tears in seconds. It would have worked on me once. Now, it just looked rehearsed. The officers separated us. I showed them everything. The folder, the printed copies I had started carrying, texts, voicemails, reports, timeline. One of them looked at me and said, "You need to file for a protective order." So I did, the next morning. And by that afternoon, it was granted. Temporary, but real. No contact, no proximity, no more ambiguity. He was served Monday. And still, he called. Blocked number. Voicemail. You really made me look dangerous because I loved you harder than you loved me. I didn't listen twice this time. I didn't need to, because by then, it wasn't about what he said anymore. It was about what he kept doing, and what I was no longer willing to tolerate. Meanwhile, my life kept moving. I passed my certification. My boss mentioned a promotion. Daniel and I kept seeing each other, slowly, carefully, like two people who understood that connection isn't supposed to feel like a test. And for the first time in a long time, things felt simple again. That's when I knew this wasn't just ending something. It was leaving something I should have walked away from a long time ago. The hearing was set for the following week, and Ethan wasn't done yet. The hearing was on a Wednesday morning. Cold, quiet, procedural. Not dramatic in the way people expect these things to be. No raised voices, no emotional speeches echoing through the room. Just structure, order, and truth laid out in sequence. Ethan arrived early. I saw him before we went in. He was wearing a cream sweater, hair neatly pulled back, face almost bare, like he had stripped away every sharp edge and replaced it with something softer. Safer, it was calculated. A different version of himself, tailored for a different audience. For a second, I almost admired the consistency. Then I looked away, because I wasn't his audience anymore. My attorney met me outside the courtroom doors, calm, prepared, already holding a copy of everything I had organized over the past few weeks. "Simple," he said quietly. "We just walk them through it." And that's exactly what we did. No embellishment, no emotional framing. Just timeline. The rooftop conversation, my decision, the same night packing, the structured pickup with Nate present, Ashley contacting me, Logan contacting me, the garage incident, the HR call, the voicemail about my living room light, the fake medical emergency, the flowers, my mother being contacted, the restaurant incident with Daniel, the cease and desist, the voicemail after the temporary order. Each piece placed exactly where it belonged, one after another. Because when you say it emotionally, it sounds complicated, messy. But when you say it chronologically, it becomes obvious. Ethan's attorney tried the expected angle. Breakup, heartbreak, miscommunication. He reacted poorly to the sudden end of a serious relationship, she said. His actions were emotional, not malicious. My attorney didn't argue. He just asked one question. When Diana confronted you at the rooftop dinner, did you tell her you created conflict to see if she would fight for you? Ethan hesitated, just for a second, then said, "Not in a malicious way." My attorney nodded, then handed over the evidence. The email, "Stop letting pride win, fight for us." The voicemail transcript, "I can see your living room light on." The later message, "I loved you harder than you loved me." The judge read quietly. No reaction, no interruption, just reading for about a minute. Then he looked up at Ethan. "Testing someone by creating fear or instability," he said, "is not an expression of love." Silence. Continuing contact after repeated refusal is not reconciliation. It is harassment. That was it. No dramatic conclusion. No long explanation. Just clarity. The protective order was granted. 18 months. No direct contact. No indirect contact. Stay 300 feet away from my home, my workplace, my vehicle, and my certification program. Final. After the hearing, Ethan stood in the hallway, waiting. Still, like there was one more scene left to play. One where I would soften. One where the quiet of the building would somehow bring everything back into something he could manage. I didn't stop. Didn't slow down. My attorney guided me through a side exit. And that was the last time I saw him. A few things happened after that. Ashley sent one message. An apology. Said she hadn't realized how much had been left out. Logan sent an email. Said he thought he was helping family. Now understood he was helping a problem. I didn't answer either. I didn't need to. My mom texted me later that night. "I'm proud of you for ending the circus." I read it twice, then smiled. Because that's exactly what it had been. A performance. And I had finally walked off the stage. A week later, my promotion came through. Team lead. Better pay. More responsibility. More travel. And for the first time, that didn't feel like something I had to negotiate with someone else's emotions. Daniel and I kept seeing each other, slowly, carefully. No pressure, no hidden tests. He texted me one night, "Thai or burgers?" And I remember staring at the message longer than I should have. Not because it was complicated, because it wasn't. Because it didn't require decoding. No underlying meaning. No emotional trap. Just a question. I replied, "Thai." And that was it. That was the entire interaction. Simple, clear, normal. I didn't realize how much I had missed that. The condo felt different too. Lighter. I repainted the guest room. Donated the decorative things Ethan insisted made the space feel more complete. Replaced them with things I actually liked. Things that didn't need explanation. Things that didn't come with expectations attached. Small changes, but meaningful ones. Because they were mine. I've thought a lot about that moment on the rooftop. Why it ended everything so quickly. It wasn't just what he said. It was how casually he said it. Like my confusion was normal. Like my discomfort was part of the process. Like love was supposed to feel unstable. Like being tested was proof of being valued. That's the thing about manipulation. It rarely introduces itself as something ugly. It calls itself passion, intensity, honesty. It says it just needs reassurance, that it just wants to feel loved. But when you strip away the language, it's still the same thing, creating problems on purpose, then judging you based on how hard you work to fix them. I'm not doing that anymore. If someone wants loyalty, honesty, effort, that's fine. So do I. But if someone needs confusion, fear, and constant proof just to feel secure, they don't want a partner. They want control. And I finally understood the difference. I stopped trying to win something that was designed for me to lose. I stopped explaining myself to someone who benefited from not understanding. And most importantly, I stopped clapping for a performance that was slowly exhausting me. The quiet that replaced it, it wasn't empty. It was peaceful. And for the first time in a long time, that felt like enough.